Well, thank you very much. And today I'm thrilled to announce that one of the most respected pharmaceutical companies anywhere in the world, frankly, I know it very well, is Regeneron. And it's agreed to offer their prescription medications at heavily discounted, most favored nation prices. In other words, the numbers will come down at levels that nobody's ever seen before. The whole most favored nation thing that we've been able to do with Bobby and Maz and everybody behind me, Marty, has been incredible. It's the biggest price reduction in drugs in history. By itself, we should win the midterms, but it doesn't work that way, unfortunately. You know, it doesn't work that way. People forget too quickly, but we'll have it's the biggest cut in drug prices in the history of our country by many percentage points. With this announcement, 17 of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies, representing 80% of the branded drug market, have now agreed to sell their drugs to American patients at the lowest prices anywhere in the world. We're going to have the lowest prices in the world. This will result in the largest drop in prescription drug prices in the history of the United States of America. I mean, it should be front page news, but it won't be. It'll be back on page 19, but the people get it. That's why we're in the Oval Office, I guess. I want to thank Regeneron CEO, a friend of mine for a long time, good guy, great guy, CEO Len Schleifer, and Chief Scientific Officer George Yankopoulos, who are two fantastic people in the medical world, very respected. We're also joined by Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Bobby, thank you. Secretary Howard Lutnick, Administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Dr. Mehmet Oz, who's doing a fantastic job. They all are. FDA Commissioner Marty McCary and Chief Counselor of Health and Human Services, Chris Klump. Thanks, Chris. Great job you're doing, Chris, wherever you may be.
Thanks, sir.
No, he's there. For decades, Americans have been forced to pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, by far. Prices that were many, many times what the rest of the world was paying, because we had a president that didn't know what they were doing, or they weren't able to get other countries to agree to it. I was able to do that because I used tariffs. I said, if you don't agree to it, we're going to put tariffs on your country. And they said, we would be honored to do it, sir, after telling everybody no, including me. But they agreed to do it. The United States is just 4% of the world's population, and consumers only 13% of all prescription drugs. Yet pharmaceutical companies have been making 75% of their profits from American customers. So think of that. With 4% of the population and doing only 13% of all prescription drugs, the companies make 75% made, I don't know, maybe, hopefully they continue, because actually it's not as bad for them as it sounds. In fact, many of their stocks are up, because actually when the price goes up on the one end, they make up for the price coming down in the United States. So it really worked out pretty good. To address this chronic unfairness, I signed an executive order instructing my administration to do everything in our power to slash prescription drug prices for Americans while getting other countries to pay more, in many cases much more. But their other prices doubled, and sometimes they tripled, and ours would go down by 60, 70, 80%, even more. Today, we're building on our unprecedented success with Regeneron, committing to offer all new drugs moving forward at most favored nations prices. They'll make their current drugs available to Medicaid and MFN. That's most favored nation. Additionally, they'll also offer their current drug, Praluent, which is the lower cholesterol and fight heart disease, to all consumers at dramatically lower cost. It'll come down from $537 to $225 and be available at trumprx.gov. I didn't put the name. Bobby did, and Oz did. It's true, actually. Remember, I came in, I said, what's this?
You like the name?
It'll be better. It'll sell better. Would you help us? So I now have my name on medication. But it's doing great. I hear it's setting records, actually. I was watching the other day, and Mark Cuban, of all people, said, it's amazing what Trump has done with this. I can't believe when I heard him say that. I was sort of in a state of shock. But others have said it, too. This whole thing it's turned out to be hot. So that's trumprx.gov. all-encompassing.gov. The company will also invest $27 billion to build up research and development and pharmaceutical manufacturing here in America, which is a big thank you very much. Today, I'm also announcing that the FDA has just approved a new drug from Regeneron called otarmeni, a gene therapy curing a rare disease that causes deafness. You know, people are totally deaf, and it's amazing. I've seen some work on it. It's actually hard to believe. We're going to talk about it in a minute. Normally, cures for rare diseases can cost millions of dollars, and really the results aren't that good. But in this case, I'm pleased to say that Regeneron will be giving this away for free for a period of time, for free. And here with us is 2-year-old Travis Smith. He was born deaf. Was he totally deaf? Pretty much, right?
100%.
Wow. This is 100%. He was 100% deaf, but he took this miracle cure, and now he can hear his mom, Sierra, say, "I love you." And Sierra, could you maybe say a few words? That's really incredible.
It's absolutely incredible. Regeneron works miracles. Yeah, he didn't know his name. He couldn't hear me tell him how much I love him. And now with Regeneron and this amazing surgery, he can listen to music, and he loves it, and he loves to dance, and he loves instruments, and I'm so proud of him. He's been so brave through all of this. And yeah, now he can hear, and he has a bright future ahead of him, and I'm so thankful to everybody on the Regeneron team.
Oh, that's incredible. I mean, even the fake news has to be impressed with this. They'll find a way to make it a bad story. He doesn't hear perfectly, but he actually does. It's about 1% off. They'll figure a way. How are you going to do it? You got to explain. No, they're genius. They are genius. I respect them a lot. But I just want to thank you, Sierra. That's incredible. Your family.
Thank you for having us.
He's a beautiful person, too. That's a beautiful boy.
Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you.
His life is a happier life?
Oh, yeah, he is so full of energy and love now, and he was such a
So you
serious
see
baby.
such a difference.
Yeah, he was such a serious baby.
And before that,
fun.
it's very tough for...
Oh, for sure. He can't tell me what he wants or what he wants to eat or what he needs, and now he'll be able to do that. And
Wow.
It's life-changing.
That's a great job they've done. I want to thank Regeneron and other companies for doing their part to bring down the cost of health care for all Americans under our Most Favored Nations agreement. We've secured gigantic discounts with price differences from 4 to 5 and even 600%. 600%. One of the most popular weight loss drugs has gone from $1,350 a month to as low as $199 a month. So that's a price that's incredible. So it used to sell in London for $87, and they raised it to $199, which is a big raise if you know, from 87 to 199. But that's been going on. Our country's been being ripped off for 30 years. How long would you say, Doug? Like 30, 40 years? Yep. For years with drugs and drug prices. So they're going up. We're going way down. And because the world is a bigger place than we are, believe it or not, it's hard to believe that, but they are, that we go down much more than they go up. So they don't go up as much as people would have thought. So they're going from, they're going to 199, and we're going down all the way down. Think of that. We're going down from $1,350 a month to $199. That's... Nobody would believe it. And this is true with all. I mean, this is the weight loss drug. But this is true with all drugs. Sometimes even more of a difference than that, sometimes a little bit less, but sometimes substantially more than even that difference. And you see what that is. So we cut the per cycle cost of IVF drugs by thousands of dollars, and we reduced the price of the major COPD medication from $458 to $50. What? That must be a typo. Is that a typo? From $458 to $50. If your boy was here, he'd go, wow. He laughed. He got bored. I think he got a little bored. He wants to go into bigger and better things, but there's nothing bigger or better than this. They'll all be available right now at trumprx.gov. So it's, you know, that's why it's doing well. It's not doing well for other reasons. It's doing well. Think of that. That's some discount. But we have others. And these are all top companies and top medications. And I think in the end, we're going to have every company involved. We're almost there right now, but we're going to have every company involved. So Trump RX has already received more than 15 million visitors, and every American should log on to check for massive discounts before they go to the pharmacy. It's setting a record. Nobody's ever seen anything like this. I've actually had many companies, I shouldn't tell you this, Bobby, but there have been many companies say, so we'd like to buy from you if you could. What? TrumpRx.com. I said, it's not for sale. It's not me. It's the government. The government owns it. I don't own it. But they're all impressed. These pharmaceutical companies, they said they've never seen anything like this. So it's fantastic. Now, I'd like to ask Secretary Kennedy to say a few words, and then we'll have Dr. Oz, the team at Regeneron, and Sierra. And Sierra, I'm so happy for you. And Chris Klump has been unbelievable, a real star. You don't know his name as much as some of the others, but he's a real star of the group. So, Bobby, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was reminded when the president was speaking of a conversation that I had yesterday with one of the Democratic senators who was questioning me during a hearing, and she was ridiculing President Trump for his math, and she was saying it's mathematically impossible to have a drug drop by 600% cost, which he had claimed. And I said, well, if the drug was $100, and it raised the price to $600, that would be a 600% rise. Well, if it drops from 600 to 100, that's a 600% savings. And the president used that mathematical device to illustrate the magnitude of the theft that has been happening against our country and our people. As he said, we have 4.2% of the world's population. We take 13% of the pharmaceutical drugs. We spend 80% of the biotechnology research in our country, and we provide 75% of the profits to the pharmaceutical industry. This is a ripoff that has irked him for 20 years. During his first term, he held the line on drug prices for the first time in history. He came back on this term and he said, we're going to lower them this time, no matter what. There's people in this room or a part of the White House staff who said we can't do that. Oz and I said we probably can't do that, but he harassed us. We were beleaguered. It was like Fort Apache. Dr. Oz would not answer his phone because he was calling all night long with the president on the line saying, get this done. And we brought in this amazing superstar, Chris Klump, and he negotiated these agreements that people said were impossible. I want to thank him for his leadership, Chris, and I want to thank George and Lynn, who are the co-founders of this this company of Regeneron. Their generosity, their idealism, their love of this country, and their compassion for these children who are injured. Thank you.
Thank you. Amazing. It is amazing. And you're right. I took a lot of heat. I'd say 500, 600, 700. But we also say sometimes 50%, 60%, different kind of calculation, 70, 80, and 90%. And people understand that better. But there are two ways of calculating it. But either way, it doesn't make any difference, whether it's 60, 70, or 80%. Nobody's ever heard of it. But it's also 500, 600, 700, depending on the way you want to look at it. So the way you word the calculation, it's either one. But Bobby, you're doing a fantastic job. We wanted somebody out of the box, and we got him, right?
That's right.
I would say we got him. And Bobby, he's a great guy, actually. So, Oz, how about saying a few words, please?
So this has been an unprecedented process. The president insisted we deal with one critical number you should all remember, which is that 1 in 3 Americans, when they go to the drugstore, after they've seen a doctor, will often leave empty-handed because they cannot afford the medications they're picking up. So affordability was the main word the president would use in many of those phone calls. He wanted it to be done fairly. We created a partnership with the pharmaceutical industry that was remarkable in that it pushed 17 massive companies into the fold to try to do deals, again, unprecedented, that would allow us to claim that they were giving the most favored nation pricing to this country, to the American people. The president would not take no for an answer. We got 16 companies in, but not the 17th. How many times do you think we spoke about the 17th company?
Too much.
17. He said 17. He wanted to be 17. Whatever math you want to make, 16 is not 17. There's a reason that the 17th company was delayed. It's why they're here today. It's that beautiful young boy you saw earlier. When you can save a child's hearing, and Mr. President, we talked about a lot of numbers. Secretary Kennedy quoted 100%, 600%. It's hard to beat free. Free is the best price, and that's the starting price with the president oftentimes, and that's what this wonderful company's agreed to. I want to applaud TrumpRx.gov, a remarkable site created by Joe Gebbia. Ed Korstein has done a wonderful job with 0 glitches, serving more than 10 million individual unique Americans so far. And Mr. President, it's the fastest website I've ever seen. People love it because it works well. There's all kinds of additional elements being added to it, which we'll be talking about. But this website, as the president said, must be checked if you're going to buy a medication to make sure your price is the right price. It's a transparency site that is more rigorous than anything that I have seen. And Mr. President, your name is attached to it. And of course, that brings a tremendous amount of attention to it. We wanted it to be perfect. And the team who did that has accomplished that exactly. I want to applaud Chris. We cannot thank him enough, but it was also John Brooks, Imba Hernandez. I see Beth back there, Theo, Rujal, a bunch of people who've done a tremendous amount of work. And what I keep hearing from the pharmaceutical industry, maybe my colleagues can address it in your comments, they never expected to have a counterparty as qualified in the federal government. If you're thinking of serving your nation, this is the right time to do it. This is the right administration to serve in because the president makes it easy to do the right thing. Gentlemen.
Go ahead,
Okay,
please.
thank you. Mr. President, Secretary Kennedy, Secretary Lutnick, Commissioner Macri, Administrator Oz, and I guess Superstar Clown.
Yes.
Thanks for having us here on behalf of all of Regeneron. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Len Schleifer, President and CEO of Regeneron, and with me is Dr. George Yancopoulos, President and Chief Scientific Officer of Regeneron. And together, well, I should pause there, I just realized something. I'm a president, he's a president, he's a president, and all three of us grew up in Queens, New York.
That's right.
So there's something maybe that was going on back then that was good. I'm not sure about now. So anyway, together we founded, George and I founded Regeneron and have built it over the past 4 decades. Today we are here. We were not pushed to be here. We are happy to be here because it marks an important step to lower drug prices. We've been arguing for more than a decade that other wealthy nations have been getting a free ride on American innovation. Just like in defense, but they've been getting in health defense a free ride. And now President Trump is putting policies in place to force these nations to pay their fair share, which will in turn lower prices for Americans. It's a good deal. But we have to remember this is just the beginning. The most important battle we all face is disease itself. We have to recognize how hard this fight is. For most major diseases that you or your loved one might suffer from, like Alzheimer's disease, to cancers, to genetic diseases, we are very far away from a cure. And we have to understand that discovering cures is perhaps the hardest scientific challenge humans undertake. Much harder than getting to the moon, not that we don't like that, but much harder than even getting to Mars or making the next generation of cell phones or electric cars. Hard like staring into the unknown for years, sometimes decades, with no guarantee that anything you're doing will ever make a difference for somebody like Travis. Regeneron is a great example of both the difficulty of the challenge, but also of the potential reward. We spent 25 years and billions of dollars, not millions, billions of dollars before we produced our first important medicine or even earned our first profit. Maybe we should have been or might have been fired, but we stuck with it. Our relentless commitment to disruptive innovation ultimately turned us into one of the most productive biotechnology companies in history. We have produced, thanks to George and his team, new medicines at the rate of about 1 important medicine a year for the last 15 years, including truly miraculous advances, impacting millions of lives. And we have 2 people here who are living proof. Mr. President, when you were ill with COVID, it was Regeneron's monoclonal cocktail that you affectionately dubbed the Regeneron. We love it. And that helped save your life. That was invented by George right here and his team. George?
Well, In addition to the president, we had a few minutes ago Sierra's beautiful boy, Travis, who was born without the ability to hear, as you heard from Sierra. And the same company and the same dedicated team of scientists that helped save the president's life also delivered a first-of-its-kind gene therapy known as autonomy. So Travis can now hear his mother, as she told you, tell him that she loves him. Hard to think of a greater gift. And just like you, Mr. President, who made our antibody treatment for COVID free for all Americans and thus saved many lives, we have made the decision, the unprecedented corporate commitment, to provide this first-of-its-kind gene therapy for hearing loss free to all the children in the United States who can benefit from it. And we do this, why? To hopefully highlight the power of disruptive biotech innovation and all the good that it can bring to all of our lives and our health. But we have to remember, despite the miraculous advances like autonomy and like the Regeneron COVID treatment, we also have to highlight how far we have yet to go to address the many diseases that lack effective treatments. And the cures will not be coming unless we not only celebrate the advances of the biopharma industry to date, but we all work together, private sector, together with the government, to not only maintain America's position as world leaders in biotech innovation, but to actually bump up innovation and become even more disruptive. Especially in a world where China is increasing investment and heavily subsidizing its biotech industry and reducing regulatory hurdles so as to try to displace America's leading position. President Trump's efforts to make drugs more affordable, as well as new FDA programs, such as the Commissioner's Voucher Program, that bring safe and effective new medicines like autonomy to patients more quickly. These are important steps. One additional important way that I've been talking to the administration about to maintain our leading position in the world is to create catalysts and accelerants for our industry and for the healthcare system, such as developing a national healthcare database linked to molecular data, including human sequence data, where Regeneron once again is a world leader. Without such big data sets, powerful new technologies such as AI, despite its potential, will not be as useful as it could be in the quest to develop new medicines and improve healthcare. The biopharma industry of America has and will continue to deliver miraculous breakthrough. You, Mr. President, and young Travis are living testaments of that. But many more lives need to be helped and saved. We need to attain a new level of disruptive innovation. We have to all work together to meet this challenge. Why? Because lives are at stake.
Let me briefly say something. I'm married to a lawyer, my son is a lawyer, but I'm going to talk about the Constitution, and I'm not an expert. But I know our Constitution lays out a vision on how America would out-innovate, out-produce, out-thrive every other nation on earth. And in it, you will find a description of a system built on incentive and reward. A system that says, take the risk, do the work, and you will share in what you create. That is why they enshrine patent protection directly in the Constitution, not as an afterthought, but as a founding principle. As Abraham Lincoln said, another great president, patents add the fuel of interest to the fire of genius. We must keep that fire burning. What we did here today will do that. Little Travis can now hear for the first time, and his potential is endless. Let's make sure he grows up in a country that never stops reaching for the next miracle. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, man. It's great to be with you again. Chris, could you say a few words, please?
Thanks, Mr. President. It's not lost on me that this year is America 250, and it's powerful, I think, to pause and remember that 250 years ago, a revolutionary free republic was born, and with it, the greatest innovation engine in the history of humanity. And we stand here today, 250 years later, getting to witness yet another groundbreaking innovation that doesn't just treat, but cures deafness in children. And because of this president and his policies around most favored nation, will enable families who are struggling and suffering with this affliction to have access to that groundbreaking therapy for free. Now, as the president mentioned, we've negotiated the 17th of 17 agreements. This represents 86% of the branded pharmaceutical drug market in the United States. But anyone who knows us knows that we're not done. That's a milestone, it's not the finish line. And so we have 3 core objectives that are next up. Number 1, and this is already underway, we are negotiating with the many hundreds of biotechnology and pharmaceutical companies representing that other 14% that are building the cures for tomorrow. To all those who are listening, I hope that we have proven that we are credible and reliable and trustworthy partners. We want to sit with you. We will listen to you. We will take the time to understand your businesses, not only as we negotiate on behalf of every American family for affordability, but also to ensure that you're best positioned to create the cures for tomorrow. Second, we continue our work on negotiating international trade agreements. 59 days after we stood in this office and President Trump, standing with Albert Bourla from Pfizer, announced the first of the 17 MFN deals, together with our colleagues from the Department of Commerce under Secretary Lutnick's leadership and from the U.S. Trade Representative's office under the leadership of Ambassador Greer, we negotiated a landmark agreement with the government of the United Kingdom in which they agreed to increase significantly the amount that they spend on branded pharmaceuticals for the first time in 26 years. That work continues with other countries. And third, we will continue our work with our partners in Congress to codify the principles that underpin these most favored nation deals so that these savings for American families and this innovation that is unleashed at the same time persists for decades to come, so that the 1 in 3 or 4 families that Dr. Oz mentioned, standing at a pharmaceutical counter or pharmacy counter right now, wrestling with the decision that no family should have to make of whether or not they can pick up their prescription because they can't afford it, will no longer be the case. And at the same time, we know that there are roughly 20,000 known diseases in the world, and we have a treatment or a cure for fewer than a quarter of those. And so this president and his policies is not only safeguarding affordability for American families, but is ensuring that we continue to bet on American exceptionalism. We bet on innovation. We bet on the principles that have taken us to this place in 250 years for the next 250 years. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, thank you, Chris. Great job you do. Maybe you want to talk about rescheduling while we're here? Just say what you're doing and
Yes.
the progress that you've made.
Great. Well, Mr. President, today is another promise made, promise kept day. On December 18th, you signed an executive order on increasing medical marijuana and cannabidiol research. And today we delivered on that promise. The acting attorney general this morning signed an order that moves into Schedule 3 medical marijuana products that are FDA approved or that are state licensed. This is a giant move forward to implement your promise, and it's actually a campaign promise that you made. You said we're going to move into Schedule 3 to increase the research on these medical products. And just wanted everyone to know that 1, you make promises, you keep them, and 2, what does Schedule 3 mean for state licensed medical marijuana products? We will begin implementation right away of this order. It does not legalize marijuana. It makes it easy for the researchers to actually study and understand medical marijuana, especially in populations that are using it. We know that 1 in 10 seniors right now use medical marijuana in the past year, and they report that it really helps them, but we don't have the science or the understanding to guide the patients and the doctors, and so both patients and doctors are flying blind without knowing how they interact with other medications because the research has been difficult to do. And so your promise today says those state licensed medical marijuana products are now in Schedule 3, and we expect the research to significantly increase so that we can understand how to guide patients and doctors in this effort. And there will be additional actions that will come this summer to do an expedited hearing for the administrative hearing of the Department of Justice for all of marijuana to move into Schedule 3.
And the military is very happy about it, and a lot of people suffering from big problems, which this seems to be the best answer. They're very happy about it, so the rescheduling is starting, and that's a big thing, rescheduling. They kept saying, what about the rescheduling? And so, great job, I appreciate it. I want to thank Mr. and Mrs. Howard Kessler. He's one of the most successful men in the world, actually, and he had some medical difficulties, and he came upon this by accident, in a way, and he said, well, he had to go through a lot of different medications, and he said this was the one that was much better than anything else. And so he experienced that he didn't benefit by it other than from the standpoint that he lives a much better life now. So hopefully you don't need it, but if you do need it, I hear it's I hear it's the best of all the alternatives. But I want to thank Howard Kessler and Michelle Kessler. They really pushed this very hard. These are two people, very straight arrows. They're not into marijuana. They're not into anything. But he found this answer, and he said, he's doing it for other people. And so Howard and Michelle probably, they're watching or they'll be hearing about it. But they worked very hard to get this done. And it's an honor, and you've done fantastically. You all have, and I appreciate it. And a man who's doing an excellent job is Howard Lutnick. He's in a little different sphere. He's not in the medical sphere, but he knows what it all means. And from Commerce, he's the Secretary of Commerce. Howard, would you say a few words for us?
Sure. So in partnership with Bobby Kennedy and Memonaz and the whole team, when they do Most Favored Nation, we also ask the company to reshore and build their drugs here in America, because too many of our drugs, our key drugs for our health, are being made overseas. And in a conflict, we can't rely upon them. And I'm honored to say that our partners from Regeneron have agreed to reshore their production of pharmaceutical drugs, and this is exactly from your pharmaceutical tariffs. That's the point. So that means $448 billion of drug manufacturing is coming to America because of your tariffs, because of your pharmaceutical strategy. And we are proud to invite Regeneron to do this giant build in America, and all the rest of the pharmaceutical companies. They've committed to build in America because of your tariff policy and your strategy.
And because of the tariffs, we have, it's been amazing, actually. We have Eli Lilly and Pfizer and all of the companies. We had, I guess, 7 of them here at one time, which was interesting to see, but they actually got along with each other pretty well. They stood right behind me, the biggest companies in the world, and they're all building, Eli Lilly's building, I think, 5 major plants, which without tariffs, they would have built none. I said, how many would you build without none? They were all making these products in other countries. A lot of other countries, actually, not just China, but a lot of other countries. And I think by the time I leave office, they'll be mostly operating these. They have an incentive to do them quickly, big incentive, like the tariffs go up if they don't. And remember, if they do them here, they don't have any tariffs to pay. It's an incredible incentive. And if they don't do them here, they have a very substantial tariff, so they get penalized. And it's bringing countries, not only drug companies, but car companies. AI is a different thing altogether, but even there, but the AI is, we're leading China in AI, we're leading everybody in AI. We're leading now in car companies. They're coming from Canada, they're coming from Mexico, Germany, Japan. They're pouring into our country because of our very smart, should have been done long ago by other presidents. We were the car capital of the world 50 or 60 years ago, and then they just started taking them away. We were the chip capital of the world, and now, Intel. And now they're coming back. All the chip companies are coming back. You may say a word about that, Howard, real fast, because what we're doing with chips are incredible. And all we're doing is saying at the end of a year and a half, 2 years, if you don't have your chip company, you're going to pay a tremendous tariff to put chips into this country. And they are building, I think we'll have close to 50% of the chip market very soon. Right now we had nothing. We had virtually nothing. And they're coming in from Taiwan. They're coming in mostly from Taiwan because that's where chips are made, but mostly from South Korea, Taiwan, various other countries, but they're coming back to America. We're bringing them all back. It's a revolution. Nobody's ever seen what we've done. There's never been anything like what we've done. We have $18 trillion being invested. That's for 11 months. And the last administration had less than $1 trillion in 4 years. We have, in 11 months, over $18 trillion. Howard, do you want to talk just for a second about the chip market, because it's explosive?
Sure. So you've got semiconductors, you've got leading edge logic, you've got high bandwidth memory, and you have foundational chips. And America had a couple of points, 3 or 4% market share. And we are, of course, the biggest demand. And the president gave the order, let's get these factories, these fabs built in America. And our expectation is we will have $1 trillion of these fabs. These are factories. This is not the hyperscalers buying chips. This is literally the making of the chips, right? We had Micron, $200 billion, TSMC, $165 billion. The list goes on and on. He negotiated a great deal with Taiwan. $500 billion coming to America. We'll have $1 trillion of semiconductors. That's part of his $18 trillion, but it's foundational for us to take care of ourselves.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.